This video is about week 1 and 2 of my labral repair and then week 1 of my hernia surgery. I want to detail the exercises that I'm doing and how I'm feeling through the journey and everything like that. Hopefully that this might help someone else out there who has to have a hernia repair, inguinal hernia repair, or a labral repair at some time, and just what has helped me and what I've done to help see more progress. Week 1, I have felt actually really awesome. Really good recovery. I've been surprised at that and how fast I've felt like I've been able to recover, especially how I felt right after surgery. Felt so awful. I'm just really groggy from anesthesia and not great with pain or anything. So I'm really happy how I am feeling now. So right after surgery, Dr. Grimm gave me the limitations that I would have going forward. And so the main limitations that was flexion more than 90 degrees at the hip, or extension more than 0 degrees or neutral. And so that's supposed to help not create too much tension on that joint capsule that they had to, repair after going into the joint. And then also not to create more stress on the labrum. And then no abduction over 30 degrees, and try not to do internal or external rotation, especially if there's any pain with it. And then he also said crutches as necessary. So he said weight bearing is tolerated is what that means. And I was stupid and I thought that meant if I had pain, I should use them, and if not, then I shouldn't. And so I was like, well, I don't have pain because I can tolerate this pain. And then I was walking all weird. I felt really unstable, trying to put my whole weight on that leg. And so I decided, you know what, I should probably use crutches, not to have I didn't want to develop an abnormal gait. I didn't want to develop a little hitch in my step, because I definitely developed one when I had my knee surgery, and it then progressed through and just has stuck with me. And that we've tried to do a ton of neural muscular retraining to be able to get that out, and it's been really, really tough and really, really hard. So I didn't want that to happen with the surgery, and I was very cognizant of that. And so I ended up on crutches for about 4 or 5 days. I just used one, sometimes 2 when we went out, just for a little bit extra support, especially around other people at all. And that's what helped me. Going through this, when I thought I shouldn't use crutches because I didn't need to, because if it was just for pain, then it didn't matter. I read a couple of research articles out there that I just wanted to briefly go over, because I thought it was really pertinent and interesting and important information. So one of them was a research article that talked about hip scopes, any type of hip scopes, but I really focused on the hip labral repair of the hip scopes. And they did a survey of doctors who do at least 50 the hip scopes every year, and they surveyed them to say, what is your protocol after surgery? And it turned out that 50% of them said weight bearing is tolerated after a hip labral repair. And then the other big majority of them said 3 or 4 weeks of 50% weight bearing after a labral repair. And that was super interesting to me, that there was such a big difference between the recommendation of different surgeons, from basically a month of crutches to, crutches if you need them. And then I read another research article that really went along with that one. And what that one talked about was, it had 2 different groups, and it had one group that after a hip labral repair, they had them go on crutches for 3 weeks. The other group, they only had them go on crutches, weight bearing as tolerated. So as long as they needed them, but if they didn't feel like they needed them, then they didn't have to use them. There was no difference in the outcomes of those two groups. They actually were the exact same outcomes. And the group that used crutches as necessary had used them for an average of 7 to 10 days. And so reading that gave me kind of the grace to myself to say, oh, like, this is okay to use crutches. This is like a fine thing. Most people use them for 7 to 10 days, or would need them actually for 7 to 10 days. So that was super helpful information to know and to realize, and to also hear the differences in different surgeons. Just because this is what I do doesn't mean that's what your surgeon or your experience is going to be, and listen to your doctors, obviously. So after getting through all of that, the first week was pretty basic in terms of exercises. I didn't actually see a physical therapist until my 1 week post-op. And so in that interim, they gave me a couple exercises to do. Some of the exercises that I did were, if I were sitting or laying down, I would do a heel slide. And so that's just sliding your heel of your bad leg in towards your bum and then back out. So that helps try to activate some of your glutes, activate your hamstrings again, and just create more range of motion in that hip that's in that range that you're allowed to do. So the other thing that I did was just quad isometric exercises. So that's just with your leg out in front of you. You tighten your quad really, really tight and you hold it for 5 to 10 seconds. You release, and then you do it 10 to 12 times, 3 sets of that. Another exercise that I did were ankle pumps. So that's just with your legs out, just pumping your ankles. That's to help not create any blood clots in your legs, not to have any blood clots develop. And then the other one was a small arc leg extension. So you put a foam roller beneath your knee, and then you just do a very tiny leg extension, hold that 5-10 seconds, and then release 10 to 12 times, 3 sets. And that was those basic exercises that I did for that first week. So the goal of that first week was really just to try to activate that quad again, get that firing again, make it stop quivering and freaking out, because they go through the quad, and so the nerve innervation is a little bit messed up at the beginning. And then also to prevent blood clots. Obviously, we don't want those. So just keeping those legs moving, keeping the blood flow going was great. And then keeping hip mobility in those parameters that were already set. Week 2 was probably slightly different for me than what it is typically for a typical hip labral repair, since I had inguinal hernia surgery at the beginning of week 2. So it really didn't increase my range of motion limitations, but it did increase my other limitations. So I can't lift over 25 pounds, and I can't increase inter-abdominal pressure. And so a big component of hip labral repair is activating your core and trying to get that firing again to give your hip more stability. And we can't do a ton of core activation that we would love to do at this stage, but we can do some isometric stuff with my inguinal hernia, as long as it's not creating any more pressure than what 25 pounds of lifting would create. Right after the surgery, it wasn't recommended by my surgeon, but I read a couple places that actually wearing a hip girdle or a hip binder would help, and that helped immensely for me to feel like my insides weren't gonna like just topple out of me. As wearing that hip girdle really helped just feel tight and nice and contained, and really prevented a lot of pain that I was having before that. Unfortunately, week 2, I missed a gymnastics meet of Emmys. I was really sad and bummed, but a 5-hour car drive down to Salt Lake probably wouldn't be the smartest idea, and so I stayed home while they went and had fun down there. And my week 2 exercises, we progressed a little bit more with those hip labral repair exercises. We were able to do some ball squeezes. So we just put a ball in between my knees, had me laying down and just had a squeeze of 5 seconds and then release. And then did that again 10 to 12 times, 3 sets, pretty much for everything. And then that helped to activate those adductors, and then to just slowly activate those abductors and a little bit of your glutes. We did a band around my legs and then held them out against the band for a count of 5 again, and then did about 3 sets of 10. We also did calf raises and did them just on a stair, so you could have full range of motion on that calf, and all the way down, all the way up on that calf. That actually made my calves super sore the next day, so be careful about that. And we did some squats with the TRX, just body weight squats. Really, it was below body weight because I was holding on to the TRX. We also did a side step off of a block. That was to really try to help me activate that glute in the type of range of motion that I would be walking, because you can't go anything past neutral for hip extension. It shortens up your gait a little bit, and then it kind of inhibits the glute. And so really trying to get that glute refiring was important. So I want to recover as quick as I can from these surgeries that have put me backwards for sure. And so because of that, I've done a couple of different things. I've done a couple of things more on the holistic side. So I've started with these sessions that start with a PEMF mat that I will lay on top of or wrap around my hip, and it's supposed to help electrical currents and kind of equalize your body again. Then I would go from that 15-minute session and I would go into a hyperbaric chamber session, and that hyperoxygenates your body. And so it's been proven to really help with wound healings and things like that. There are some research articles about it for surgeries and recovering faster from surgery. So I thought it was a great way to try to help with all of these things that I'm doing. So that's an hour-long session that I would be in there. And then after that, I go into the red light chamber that they have. And it's just a whole bunch of infrared lights and red light therapy that would be targeted towards my hip for all of that. So just really trying to throw the kitchen sink and do everything that I can to help my body repair itself and just really help my body help itself. Really natural, easy ways. I've done a lot of napping that I've done in the hyperbaric chamber and then also just at home, especially right after those surgeries. I think about 2 or 3 days after the surgeries, I was taking at least 1, sometimes 2 30-minute naps a day. My surgeon wanted me to go on walks starting the day of surgery, so I got to have some fun time with Sydney. And I think it's important to make sure that you give yourself permission to slow down after surgery. Be intentional about enjoying the things that you may sometimes take for granted in the busyness of life, and savor the little moments like these. And then after each surgery, I did ice. I would ice the area for about 10-15 minutes, and I did it about 2 or 3 times a day just to really help decrease that inflammation. So all of those things are proven to help decrease inflammation, increase recovery, and so everything that I can do is great. If y'all have any other suggestions of how to increase recovery, I am all ears. Obviously, I am willing to try anything and would love to hear what you have to say in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.